This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Before we get started here, I'd like to make a statement. It may seem that the supply chain and the staff shortages that you see on TV couldn't happen here, but they are. Some of the local businesses are experiencing shortages of workers' products to put on their shelf. Our city municipal liquor store also struggles with this. Some of the products are hard to get, and staffing has been an issue since and before the COVID pandemic hit. Due to the recent turnover at the municipal liquor store, we have adjusted our hours and days that we are open. Attracting potential employees can be a challenge under normal circumstances. The city's recent mean-spirited attacks toward city employees and city council printed and in social media makes it even harder to find people who meet the qualifications and have the experience needed to work there. I spoke to the former House of Spirits manager myself. The employee moved to a different job for better hours and doesn't have to work evenings and weekends. And a good friend of mine, so it really doesn't surprise me. I knew a year and a half ago that she was looking for a different job then so she could spend more time helping her husband with his Snap-on route. So wish her well. She's done a wonderful job with the off sale and did a good job of bookkeeping and organizing down there. As mayor, I ask the citizens to remember the negative statements are not only hurtful to those they are aimed at, but they are harmful to our town and the citizens that are living here. You might hear only one side of the story, but do not have all the facts. It keeps people away, and it is hurting the ability to provide the services that you are accustomed to and the citizens of this community deserve. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to approval of the minutes.
Motion to accept the minutes from August 18th, 2021 regular meeting and the September 20th, 2021 special meeting. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to accept the minutes from those meetings. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, changes to agenda. Hearing none, we'll move on to presentations. Bob?
No, there's no presentations.
Okay. Public hearing. Public comments, there's none. New business. Sinkhole update.
As many in the community might know, Bob, you can come and join us for this chat. We had a sinkhole kind of appear out of nowhere due to some of those supply chain side challenges. Despite it being an emergent situation, we have had some trouble having the contractor do the work simply because of those supply chain delays. We are on top of it. It is dangerous out there. If you guys are listening at home, if you have a kids or anything, we've barricaded very well, but it's really important that they stay clear of that area. We don't want anybody getting hurt. Excuse me? On Teal'c.
Right across from the, what is it, the Strands Apartments here, right on the river.
Bob, can you talk to us a little bit about the technical aspects of it?
Yeah, so Willie called me one Sunday evening, obviously concerned about the sinkhole. The sinkhole was caused because of the storm sewer break. We don't know how old the storm sewer was. It's old 55 clay pipe. I was discussing before the meeting with a couple of folks that the storm sewer pipe actually goes underneath the foundation of a building that's no longer there. So that can kind of tell you the age of that storm sewer and how old it is. So it's old 55 clay pipe. Connects to a storm sewer manhole on Teal'c Avenue. The storm sewer that discharges via this pipe actually comes down Main Street, collects a lot of storm water off of Main Street, so it's a significant portion of the community that comes through that storm sewer. As Willie mentioned, right away we had a contractor come down and look at it that Monday morning. Ever since that time, I don't even remember what date that was, Willie. It's been a while ago. It's got to be at least 3 weeks. Ever since that time, they've been trying to get materials. Willie and myself have been corresponding with the contractor, I would say on the average of twice a week. The update that I can give you is I did correspond via phone with the contractor today. They're hopefully going to receive their materials this week, and they would like to complete that work this week if they can. So again, the supply chain shortage, the worker shortage that Mayor Council mentioned at the beginning of the meeting is real. We're seeing it on a number of projects, and this one is a prime example. Normally, a concrete manhole and some reinforced concrete pipe would be available pretty much immediately. It'd be in a yard somewhere. They've had a tough time getting that material. So hopefully when they're done, they'll repair it. They're going to have to do some work to the riverbank, take the riprap out, replace the pipe. They're going to have to take some of that foundation out, that building foundation out, replace the structure in the street. So it's likely until the avenue will be shut down during the construction of that. I'm thinking hopefully it'll only take a day or two. So I'll have to wait and see. Hopefully this week they can get the material and get going on that. If not, hopefully next week. Any other questions?
How does that, is that entertained? Do we need to remove them debris from the river too then? Is that all part of it? Is that all?
Yeah. Yeah, what we'll do is we'll just have them come and go down when they're done, take their backhoe and remove whatever debris was
Flushed into
flushed
the,
into the river. Yeah, so basically they'll restart what was there before is best thing. Yeah, good question.
We have, generally when you have a service contract pursuant to Minnesota statutes 471.35 and Minnesota statute 16C.28, you really need to go out to bid for these things. The issue is when it's an emergent situation, the bid process, you can circumvent it because of the emergency nature of it. The emergency being stated, the response to it is delayed because of the supply chain logistics. So just wanted to make you aware of that.
Yeah, and please keep in mind that we wouldn't have had them respond immediately. Let's say if we had waited a week or two to get bids, the delay in materials would be that much more. So instead of hoping getting materials this week, it could have been delayed another couple of weeks. And obviously, when you get to this time of the year, every day matters.
yeah, we wouldn't want to be in December trying to tackle that project for sure.
What would have happened if we would have had to wait?
It would probably have to just remain as is over the winter time. Hopefully it wouldn't get too much runoff or too much rain. That sinkhole wouldn't increase in size.
So we got rain today. How much did it damage more than what we already got?
Right now, I looked at it before I came here. Right now, that hole is full. Obviously, we got a very limited amount of rain. It's full of water. So the pipe actually must be plugged from the sinkhole down to the river.
So I'm not catching this sinkhole thing. It isn't a hole. It's actually a break away from the riverbank. Is that what we're talking
From the
about?
curb all the way to the river, there's a hole probably 12 feet deep and 8 foot, 10 foot in diameter. And you can see the foundation of the old city shop down there. And I mean, you could fall in there and break your neck. It's deep.
Okay.
And I mean, if it keeps getting worse, it'll start sucking the water, the dirt out from underneath Tilkey.
Yeah, that is the concern.
Because now, especially if it's plugged and it's saturating that dirt under the road, I mean, when it starts leaking out, it'll start pulling that dirt with it.
So the other concern that I keep seeing when I saw today was full of water. So let's say if we do get a significant rain event, a lot of water starts coming through that area. That water's going to rise in that sinkhole to a point where it's going to start to wash overland down to the river. And if it starts washing overland down to the river, that means erosion. It could continue to erode that bank down to the river. So,
Because okay, so there is an actual hole on the north side of the curb. Okay.
And it's big too.
In addition to the fall away of the riverbank, there's a hole.
and again, please, if the public is watching, stay away from it because it's a little bit misleading. It looks like, the banks, the hole, and the day that it happened, the soil was actually eroding away from underneath the banks. So please don't walk up to that hole, don't get near it because the soil beneath the edges could be undermined. So that's why it's barricaded off.
Do they have to get like any DNR permits to start moving material back out of the riverbed? Or is that kind of a, being it was the case that it is, they can just do it?
They're just gonna go ahead and do it, take that material out of there. Typically, if it was a larger size project, permitting that's required to the PCA, like if we move ahead with the street utility improvement project, we have to get, and it's called a National Pollution Discharge Elimination Permit for the PCA. This is basically a maintenance or a fixed project. It's not large enough to require a permit from they're just gonna go ahead and put that material testing. Good questions. Any other questions?
So is this just approved and done?
Well, I mean, I don't-
What it says on here, it's discussions. Is this approved and done? Or what is this topic of discussion?
You're discussing the cost.
Yep.
My office had to approve it and do it in an emergency situation. My office was authorized to do that. What you're discussing is why we're moving forward so that you guys all know where we are in the process.
But we have to do it. We went to the county and they don't, it's not their problem, so we have to fix it. I mean, legally, I mean, we can't leave that hole open. I mean, legally, it's just.
I totally understand that. I just was getting a little bit of the lay of the land. I know we got an email as a council stating that we had this problem, that this was going to be the attendant cost. I am very, very frustrated with the cost. I mean, I'm in a struggle with $67,000 to repair this. Now I'm seeing some of these breakdowns. I apologize. I forgot my cheaters. I can't read this thing. It's so small, but I was a little bit frustrated with some of the cost, the total cost, what it was going to cost to fix a hole plus some stuff sliding down the riverbank.
So just to elaborate on that a little bit, what they're gonna have to wind up doing is replace the pipe from the storm sewer structure that's in the street.
In the street, okay,
They're gonna have to replace the storm sewer structure itself.
okay,
In order to dig down and replace the storm sewer structure, they're gonna have to take out curb and gutter,
okay,
take out a portion of that street. There's some guardrail right there that they're gonna have to salvage and reinstall. There's actually a light, a street light right there that they're gonna have to salvage and reinstall.
okay,
So when you start looking at all that stuff up, as you can see from the bid tabulation that was given by the contractor, there gets to be a lot of things that are involved in this project.
Well, and especially tearing that foundation of that old city shop out over that storm sewer, because that thing is thick. I mean, that is a massive piece of concrete.
and that has to come out this time?
The storm sewer runs under the old foundation.
Okay.
of the City shop, so when they tore it down, they should have tore the foundation out, and we wouldn't be playing it now.
Okay, yep,
So they will also be salvaging the riprap along the riverbank.
Yeah.
Salvaging that. When they put in the storm sewer pipe, they'll put that back. We've actually added a little bit more if they need more. It seems like anytime you try to salvage something like that, put it back, you need obviously every piece of riprap. So they'll add a little bit more riprap around that area. So it's gonna be a little bit bigger project than I think what people actually realize. I think that storm sewer can hold one.
so was this pipe underneath, did that break? Is that why we got
Old clay tile.
or did it cave in or something? That's what's originally caused this? Okay,
Yeah, it broke, and then once it broke, the water started rushing through there, and basically just eroded the soil. So how long has it been broke? We don't even know. I don't know how long it took to erode that soil. But yeah.
Well, then you said the manhole that tile goes to is still a brick manhole too.
It's an old brick, old brick.
okay. Now, is there any type of reimbursement we can get, like from the DNR, Water Act or whatever they call that thing?
Not that I'm aware of, because it's a maintenance issue.
Okay. The
Generally,
reason I'm saying that is because the repair of the riverbank is involved with this, not just our sewer, or excuse me, our storm sewer type thing. And that's why I forget that name of that fund that's out there through the DNR. It's the River or Water Relief Act or something like that.
Yeah, and I'm not aware of it either. In these situations in the past, what we've run into is what they'll typically say is you're doing that work along that riverbank to address your infrastructure that's related to collecting water off of your streets right away, like that. So it's not anything to do with the DNR. What we need to do as far as the river is directly related to maintenance to your infrastructure, your storms. So,
I mean, I realize our sewer discharge thing caused probably the riverbank to fade away. But at the end of the day, it did deteriorate.
and please realize that right now, this sinkhole is actually fairly high on the bank. It's not actually down where the riprap is. It's fairly high up on the bank. It's not all that far behind the curb gutter. So if you have driven by and looked at it,
I did tonight, and I saw the U-shaped black dirt up at the top, which to me looked like it was farther down than just at the land surface. It was actually down along the riverbank a little.
yeah,
That's a big bank there.
yeah, it goes down a little bit, but there is approval, you'll have to go and look at it.
Generally, the grant programs that are available are of a preventative nature. The work is expected to be done to prevent things like this from happening. River erosion is something that's hard to keep track. But in this case, I'm not sure, I'm not an engineer, but it doesn't seem that river erosion by itself caused this sinkhole.
I would totally agree with you. I'm just saying part of the riverbank has been the damage. Therefore, that's why I was thinking, because we have to restore that, right? To what it was, or try get to at least what it was. I totally get you where you're coming from. I don't disagree that it wasn't something we did, but
We didn't do it. Water freezing, salination.
okay, the city's own material thing or whatever you want to call that storm sewer did it. It's old.
And then with regards to the county's responsibility, and I've asked the county to send me information about how that arrangement was structured. The county gives us annual monies for the maintenance of their streets. In 2021, we received thus far $7,436.91. So they're giving us these monies for maintaining their county-owned streets. It doesn't seem like a lot of money compared to this project, right? But if you think about the times when there isn't these kinds of issues, luckily, knock on wood, it's not a frequent happening, but we're getting these monies regardless of whether or not there's a major occurrence.
Okay.
So I hope to receive information from the county about how that arrangement was set up, just in case something in the future happens. Maybe city council would like to discuss with the commissioners how that should be readjusted. Yeah.
Yeah. Underground street utilities project.
So I did hand out an outline to everybody at the council table beforehand. I'm going to go ahead and hand enough for the public that's here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and send it out to the public so they know what we're talking about.
Yep.
So the reason I'm here this evening is I just wanted to come back and go over things one last time. On the September 15th council meeting, we had some very good discussion as far as the areas the city wanted to move forward with. I'm going to basically try to focus on I got two exhibits attached to this outline. The first one is the areas that was included in the facility plan. So basically, as you can see, the different colors here, those are the areas that we discussed in the public hearing for the facility plan. The second exhibit shows the areas that the September 15th council meeting, the city indicated that you wish you would like to move forward. So at this time, we're under the understanding the city wants to move ahead with construction in 2022, but the areas included on the second exhibit. I just wanted to clarify that with everybody. The other thing I wanted to clarify is in this exhibit, that second exhibit, I've got various colors. So I've got red, blue, and yellow. And the areas in red and blue, the areas in red include surface, sanitary sewer, water main, and storm sewer improvements. Those are the eligible funding of the VFA because they include sewer and water. The areas in blue include surface and water system improvements and possibly storm sewer. So those areas we anticipate being eligible for VFA funding because they include the reconstruction of water main. The areas in yellow, from the information that we have, the utilities in those areas, either you don't have sewer and water in those areas, or the sewer and water in those areas are fairly new, they're PVC. So what we're looking at as far as the yellow areas is just doing surface improvements. Since we're not doing any sewer and water improvements in the yellow areas, those would not qualify for VFA funding.
Stop. Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to repeat that again. It's really important that we get this.
Yep.
Yellow means no money.
It means you would have to go with bonds definitely for those improvements. You would not qualify to receive PFA funding for those improvements. And to recap, right now, the final list for PFA came out in early October. You do qualify for PFA funding for the areas in red. So congratulations for that. We put a lot of time and effort into that. So congratulations for that. Typically, PFA funding consists of a 20-year loan at a 1% interest. I will say this, the question I get all the time is, are we going to qualify for grant? You possibly would qualify for some grant for the water system improvements. Because of the debt service that you're incurring as a result of the water treatment plant, it is possible you may receive some grant dollars related to the water system improvements. I'm not going to guarantee anything at this time because we have to get some data from the city based on your 2021 water users. We have to wait and see how the median household income numbers change as a result of the census.
Stop. This also means the covenants promise to PFA for user rates that cover O&M, operation and maintenance, and debt service. Without those being to 105% of the debt service, you will not qualify for grants. That's part of the strings attached to getting that money.
So now when we've been doing this and we're upping our water rates, we're not at that level yet. So we need to be there before we can try to get these funds. Or when you did that and they said we could move at the pace we are, they're fine with that or not?
Yep, but the city committed to making sure that the rates were competitive to cover debt service and O&M in these enterprise funds.
But we won't get there for 2 years yet, correct?
For the enterprise funds to be completely sustainable, no, we have to continue to raise them. We have to continue to raise them. And
But I
that's why
mean,
we're
we
doing
need
a
to do
super
that to
study.
get to the 105%, correct?
No, we're at 105% now, but as cost of living, inflation, all of those things get factored into your new application, your rates have to match whatever that is. Right now, for the city to know, we are in the middle of a rate study. And when that gets done, then we'll know what the rates should be for the next ensuing years.
So again, I just wanted to make sure everybody's clear as we move forward that that's what the color coding on that map entails or needs. That's where we're at with funding. I didn't know what the final funding stuff was, if you were going to qualify for funding or not. I'm sure you were, but the final lists are out now. You do qualify for funding from the PFA. So again, that's a very good thing. Any questions, comments on the project areas? Like I said, I wanted to make it very clear that those yellow areas, if you decide to move ahead with those areas, you do not want to do any improvements to water and sewer, you would have to bond separately for improvements related to those areas.
So when we turn that corner off of Beale and we have that block down there up by Riverview, that would be yellow, correct?
That's yellow. It's actually shown as yellow on this map. I don't know if you can see it. It's not real live. If you look at the second map, my outline,
Okay.
that I added that. It's shown as yellow.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the wrong one.
Something else, I don't know if, as far as I remember, we didn't write any of these streets in stone that we're gonna do.
That's why I left it open-ended, I guess, until this meeting. And basically at this time, we would like to know, hopefully, moving forward from today, if you want to move ahead with these areas or not.
I still have a problem going west of Herring on Schliemann because we've talked before it was brought up here. We've talked before that our main route to the hospital will be Tilke because Schliemann is too narrow of a road. There's too many houses on there, too many kids running back and forth. So I still yet would not like to go west of Herring on Schliemann. We can do that at another time.
Well, my question to the council on this whole project is, I mean, anything in yellow, I know Herring is terrible between Appleton Oil and all the way through town. I mean, I know that, but with our debt service the way it is now, we're strapped basically for 2 years until we start dropping stuff off. I mean, is it a dumb idea to try to only do the areas where we know we can get the funding through the PFA and hold off on the ones that we have to bond for? Because right now we really can't afford it. I mean, we can't afford to go out and bond to do Herring because, I mean, we had to bond for a water plant. That's why our taxes went up. Because for 2 years, we have to cover that expense of that water plant. So, I mean, everybody's very concerned about our taxes going up the percentage they are. The majority of that is because we have to cover those 2 years of that water plant.
That's that 200 and some odd thousand dollars.
$224,000 we need to cover on that water plant. So I'm just throwing this out there to the council. Maybe it would be a better idea to try to do the stuff we know we can get funding through the PFA at 1% and not bond our taxpayers at this time and until we drop off some of that debt. And I know everybody's mad and they're sick of bouncing down herring. I'm
Can I ask
one of
a
them.
question?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a relatively new resident. The problems that I see with the water, the streets, all this is because they keep putting it off. Yes, we probably have, we all live day to day in our own lives with financial balancing. Is it worth putting it off again, and prices are gonna go up, chariots are gonna go up, all of the planning that has gone into this is gonna be in the rearview mirror, and it's gonna all be redone again. Now, I'm not professing to know the whole story here, but driving around this town, living here, having some of the problems that I've had with the water system, finding. If we just keep saying, should we just put it off because, yeah, money's tight, money's gonna always be tight. So I'm probably not the most popular person in town for saying this, to be honest with you. We need to fix the problems and figure out how. And by golly, I live here, it's my responsibility as a taxpayer to pay my damn taxes so that this stuff can be taken care of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think what maybe some of us, have conflicts with is, what is the average medium household income right now in our town last census,
It
Bob?
was 35,000. That's the median household.
So when we talk about people are having a hard time putting food on the tables, I think you know what we
Well,
struggle with
and
every
that,
day.
you
But
know,
I hear you. I mean, I'm with you.
You
but-
know, there's just times that, and our roads and our water systems and our roadways are to the point where it's time to bite the bullet and suck it up.
Well, that's what we had to do with the water plant because the state
Well,
was
yeah,
basically shut us down. So we
Right.
had to do
You know.
something, yeah, so.
And, it's just, I know it's a hard, bitter pill to swallow. And I'm not sure how you as a council can communicate this to my community. But I will hear a lot. I have managed to keep my mouth shut to a lot of people. But a large part of this is because people have been sitting on their hands and keeping their money in their pocket and not taking care of business.
Correct.
Yep.
So,
Yep, I
well,
agree.
I mean, if we do this, Bob, I mean, obviously there's gonna come to a point that maybe we can't afford to bond, but I mean, it's reality. I mean,
Right,
we
so
can't
that-
afford it. So-
To that point, want to make sure that when we issue debt service, that we're not going beyond our net tax capacity. We'll certainly take care of that. But to George's point, and I want the community at home to rest a little easy as well. Today's discussions about these streets are not whether or not we will do some of these projects. It's about prioritizing how you best do them. So there are some options between some streets that are fundable through this program. And then there's a lot of streets, there are some streets that are not fundable. So right now, the city council has to decide which of these streets are more salient to do now because we can afford them. And by afford, I mean issue debt to service, which will not affect the city's cash flow because we will be receiving reimbursements as we currently are with the water treatment plant.
So the long-term plan is to actually address the
Everything.
paper, right? That's the long
Yeah.
term.
And then probably look at the west side of the highway as well.
But that's
going
where we're
forward.
trying to figure out what phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, you know, because we can't
The
afford
short
that.
term, and I'm sorry if I'm making, if I'm.
You're not.
I'm sorry.
Very
So
glad
the
to hear from
short-term plan is to do this, and what.
Then the next year,
That's suggesting
just,
is
yeah.
let's take care of the blue and the red now.
Yep.
And-
Well, and that's what I was gonna ask Bob next. I mean, rather than doing herring in the yellow, would we be better off trying to do Snelling and these other ones in the red where we can go through the PFA funding? I mean, we were trying to get the avenue through town where people travel, but what I'm saying, is being we can get no money at all for yellow and we can get PFA money at 1% for the red and the blue, maybe we should do all the red and the blue and not the yellow.
Yeah, that's up to you folks as a city, totally.
I mean, we did that just because of the complaining of everybody wanting to drive down that street.
Yeah, what I had heard last meeting, some of these corridors that we had in the second exhibit, just in yellow, are some of the corridors that a lot of people travel in town, even though they're not eligible for PFA. That's what we heard. From simply a financial standpoint, yeah, sticking to the red, the green, and the blue probably makes more sense because those areas would likely qualify for PFA funding, where the areas of yellow again, you would have to go on the bond side.
So the one I'm hearing from Appleton Oil down, where does that ends at that street that goes across by the river then, or what?
That ends at Wilkening Avenue. So according to the records that we've got, there's water main south of Wilkening Avenue, and that's PVC. That's newer pipe. That should not have to be replaced. But everything from Wilkening Avenue north is old infrastructure. That should be replaced. When I say old infrastructure, I mean sewer and water, subsurface infrastructure. That's why it's red.
I know
What
for
would
the
we say,
city
Bob,
council.
if we don't do Schliemann west of Herring? Now that's 3 blocks.
Here's the only thing to remember about that, and I'm just saying from the outside looking in. If we're gonna do Schliemann, I think it would almost be better just to say, we're gonna do Schliemann the whole way. Just get Schliemann done the whole way. That way that street is done. The whole east side of town on Schliemann is done. You don't have to worry about it. It's done.
Yeah, but the rest of them coming down in the next phases, they'll have to come down there too. They'll have to come down to Munsterman.
Yeah,
So what would be the difference if we put off 3 blocks? 3 blocks has got to knock a lot of money out of the program.
it does.
You know, and I mean, if we stop it at Herring, and Herring's got the new water and sewer in it, or at least the sewer, and if we stop there and plug in the sewer there, we're getting rid of the water.
Yeah, I mean, we can do that. If you want to not do Schliemann west of Herring, that is fine with me. I will say this to the audience's comment about getting stuff done now as time goes on. Just remember, prices do go up. So I hear a lot of times, and I'm not advocating that you move ahead of some of these areas, but a lot of times I hear that we can't afford to do this. Well, the reality is this. If you can't afford to do it right now, it's very likely that in 5 years, when construction goes up 2 to 3 or 4% per year, you're not going to be able to afford it. It's going to cost you that much more 5 years from now than it does right now. So please keep that in mind as well.
I mean, my opinion is if we can get 1% money through the PFA to do everything we can in the red and the blue period.
Right. I mean, I'd be more willing to cut yellow, these surface,
I mean, anything that we can get
I mean,
PFA funding for 1%.
especially until we get this water treatment plant bonding off of the levee. I wouldn't cut anything that's blue or red personally. I respect your opinion, Gary, but I don't, it doesn't make sense to me. I think that we should do what we can afford to do that is at a 1% interest rate, because in 2-3 years, we don't know what that interest rate is going to be. Interest rates in general are probably going up.
What does the
across the board.
PFA usually stays fairly low with this?
It stays fairly low, but you gotta remember, interest rates have been fairly low for a period of time too. So to Tim's comment, we don't know what's gonna happen, 2, 3, 4 years from now. But it has been consistently 1% for quite a while. And again, interest rates have been very low for a long period of time.
So just a question too out of that. So if we would do this phase, we get this phase done, we do everything red and blue. When you do these programs for like our city now, when would we do phase 2? You don't do them alter year after year, correct? I mean, that usually isn't economical, or do you just keep marching forward?
You want them to align with the bonding years for the state.
Yeah, it all depends on how the city wants to do it. I've got some that once they started, and once your debt service, a lot of times it gets so high that you start qualifying for grant dollars. And once they get into that grant dollar category, they keep right on margin. Every year they did a project.
Yeah.
And we've
But
got,
can we get to that point?
you gotta get to that point, but you have to get more debt service to qualify. And like I said, with what you got going on right now at the water plant and what you're looking at doing here, financially, using 2019 water demand information and your 2000 for current median household income information, you would qualify for a grant, possibly. I'm not gonna promise you anything because
And just to make the distinction for those of you in the audience and who may be listening at home, when Mr. Schliemann comments about the requirements for debt service in order to qualify for PFA monies, we're speaking about a specific type of debt service. So debt service associated to these types of projects. We're not talking about all of the debt service, but as the staff has identified to City Council, after 2023, significant debt service will start coming off and you will have the net capacity room in your taxes to be able to do these projects. We just have to be very strategic right now so that we're not encumbering our community's future, people who will be here 3 years from now, to not be able to make these decisions. We don't want to tie down future residents who have to make certain decisions for your tax rate. So that's why we're trying to be very careful today.
But if you don't do something with the water and treatment and the sewers and in 3 years, streets are gonna be falling in and I'm moving.
But the problem is,
That's why it's important we pick the right streets first.
and I mean, that's what we're trying to do here, because we're
Take the
advocating,
worst
I mean,
first.
this is a problem we're trying to fix. It's been 40 or 50 years in the making, so.
The thing with not doing this 3 blocks on Schliemann, I'm kind of as a resident would be, you've got this part of the road tore up, you've got this part of the road tore up, just do the rest of the road. You know, I don't understand the logic in not doing 3 blocks in the middle of a street.
Well, my opinion to the council is, I mean, I would like to see with Bob, we can do everything in red and blue that we can get PFA funding for in this first stage.
If you do that, Dan, what would you say for the yellow? When would it be? Would it be at the summer of 2023?
Well, like Bob says, it'll depend on if we get this and we get that water plant online, if we qualify for the grants, and we can start going every year, do phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and just do sections every year. And keep moving.
That's fine. I'm just curious when phase 2 would kick in.
That's why I asked him, I mean, do we just keep marching? That's what I didn't know. If we do phase 1, do we need to wait 3 years, or can we do it again right away the next year?
You think what you told me, that we'd have to skip it here. We'd have to
You
go
necessarily-
we'd have to wait.
Right, necessarily want to space out to make sure that you have room for all of the things that may show up. You know, my heart is a little scared with the condition of the side of the river there and some of the other conditions with our infrastructure. We don't know if there may be emergent sort of infrastructure needs that require access to our levee.
We could have our plan here, and we could have something on this end of town, but we gotta do 5 blocks over here that ain't in the plan, and then you don't have the bonding capability to do it. I just don't want to get us backed in the corner where we can't do an emergency either.
So to Councilmember Silty's question, based on the projections for where your levy will be with regards to debt service, 24, 25, 26, you're going to be golden to be able to do these
Okay, so we would have to skip 1 year.
1 year.
1 year, and then we could go back to doing streets.
You can go back
Unless we had
to,
an emergency, yeah.
unless you have an emergency, but you'll be back to be having room to do different phases of this project.
How long would this take, Bob, that this work? I mean, work on this.
So, very good question. I was gonna clarify with Mayor Council, when you say everything in red, green, and blue, are you talking on the first exhibit or the second?
It's like,
So in my outline, again, there's 2 exhibits that should be included.
Yeah,
this is.
exhibit 1 is the one where it's basically all the streets.
Yep.
But I was thinking of this, if we're not gonna do any yellow, maybe we should try to do all the,
So you're talking the first exhibit. So-
Yeah.
So that brings up a good point. Thank you, very good. So then what we haven't talked about is constructability. There is a lot of work there.
Yep.
You're looking at probably at least a 2-year project for a contractor at that point.
I think then we better look at this one.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm throwing it out there for
Let me-
having a bond for it.
That one, that first one, that's a big dog.
That's a lot of work.
Let me make a recommendation here for the council to consider. And that would be all of Schliemann and all of Rooney. Obviously, there's a small amount on the east side of Schliemann and Rooney that connect, and obviously that would be done too. Would be a small part of Beal. And that would be something I'd like people to consider. It would be 2 full corridors, east and west, which I believe are probably some of the worst we have, looking at where we've been digging.
You want to skip that?
And I don't know why you'd only do an end of Herring that's in the red and then leave the rest of Herring. To me, that's one project.
What are the thoughts of removing the ambulance line though? Do we need to do that Beale Street? I mean, just the surface and around that corner, I don't know, that's an issue too. I mean, in the
If we do
wintertime,
Schliemann, we can put it off for a little bit longer,
yeah.
moving it. It's another thing to consider.
Yeah,
And it may be more affordable for our city at this time.
I agree with you, Jason. Currently, the ambulance is actually, I mean, 99% of the time, every time I see them, they're taking Tilkey to Beal anyway. It's unfortunate that it's not real smooth in places. But it's far better than Schliemann. So I would just soon to, kind of concentrate on some of these areas that have the worst infrastructure.
Well,
It would be
basically-
great to do surface improvements just because, but, I am nervous about putting too much more on the levy in the next year or two.
So basically, I mean, right now, until we get our bonding thing figured out, I mean, when we drop that stuff off in 2 years, we could do a 2-year plan here. So you got 1 year here and you got a year here of doing PFA monies, correct?
Yeah, so let's say if we move ahead with what Councilman Heineke suggested, let's next year do Schliemann, Rooney, possibly that one block of field between Schliemann and Rooney. That's a nice 1-year project. If everything goes smooth, the city's financially comfortable with moving ahead the following year with another project, the PFA has monies available every year.
So then we can finish up the red and the blue the
If then you
following.
can move ahead with red, blue, or green, whatever phase 2 you want.
Yeah, and then by then our water plant will be off the deal. Then we can start doing the yellow and the other ones we need to do then, correct?
If you choose. But I agree, I think what's been suggested would be a very nice 1-year size project. After 1 year, see the financials of the city, and if we're comfortable with moving ahead with another project the following year, we can. If not, we can wait a year.
Bob, you got those preliminary street by streets with you tonight? Okay, I didn't bring it either.
I do not. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
We've seen them.
We've
all.
really changed a lot here from one meeting to the next on what we're looking at doing, so.
No, I agree with Jason's there. I mean, I'm good with that. If we could turn this into a 2-year thing with the PFA monies, and then we can get our water plant paid down and then switch gears and get up to where we can start getting grant money, that'd be huge.
Yeah, I think that is a nice approach as well.
So we need to make that into a motion to have him go forward with that.
Mhm.
Jay, you want to make your request into a motion?
I make a motion to move forward with Schliemann and Rooney and the small portion between Schliemann and Rooney on Beal as part of our
First phase.
phase 1.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to have Schliemann and Rooney and the short part of Beal as the first phase of our street project. Would there be any other discussion?
I'd still like to drop off anything west of Herring.
No, we might, I think we should leave it on there. That's my opinion. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So So moving forward, then, this is the reason I came tonight. I just wanted to make sure that we put this in the better part of the disaster. We are actually out here right now collecting field information, and I told our crews to start on Sleeman and Newman, because I had a feeling that those are the main people who want to start on. So we started on that. So this week and next week, we're gonna have folks in town collecting field data. But I will go back then, and we want to get somebody out here to do soil borings in these areas to determine how subsurface conditions affect construction and design. We'll go back and figure out in these areas if we have good televising information of your sanitary sewer. Some of them I know we do, some of them we may or may not. We want to make sure that we get very good televising information, so we'll take a look at that. And then I can obviously get together an agreement for engineering services for this, and then also if the city does want to specially assess a portion of the improvements for these areas, there are chapter 429 state statutes that we need to follow. So the first thing that you would need to do is approve a preliminary engineering report for this area. I will work with Willie through that process, and I will be back to go over all that. So again, a lot of stuff.
A couple of hearings that are going to be required.
Yep, there's 2 hearings required. So, any other questions for me this evening on anything?
No, appreciate you coming down, Bob.
Yep, thank you. Very good discussion. I appreciate the input from the audience as well. Thank you. So,
Thanks, Bob.
have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Moving on, Dean McTighe, demolition reimbursement.
Yep, Mr. McTighe submitted all of his information on time. He's completely compliant with the program. He has had properly demolished, and so my office recommending that you guys approve him for his reimbursement.
Motion to approve Dean McTighe's 2,500 demolition reimbursement.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? Motion carries. Conditional use permit, Gary Borsted.
Mr. Borsted,
Out there.
you're abstaining?
Oh, yeah, I'm abstaining.
He's completely compliant with zoning conditional use request. He is located in a C1 commercial downtown core, and one of the conditional uses is auto body repair. He's looking for limited recreational auto body repair, nothing associated with business functions or collision repairs for insurance. So the city and staff are recommending that the city council approve this request.
So is any of this for hire?
Huh?
Any of this for hire?
No. Well, I shouldn't say no. A little bit. You know, like if somebody comes over and wants a little rust work done or something, but I do not insurance bid. I do not do collision repair.
That changes things. So now I'm going to ask you a question. Are you going to be collecting in a year more than $8,000 for that you just described?
No.
Okay, you're good with the taxes.
It's very limited what I do for other people. I only work for friends. And 90% of that is if it comes in, they need a little hole like that, the rust fixed or something, because there's very few body shops anymore that will repair rust.
I agree. I just don't want to create a problem for the council in the future of a commercial entity wanting to happen in a residential area again. And so I guess we're willing to put in there, you know, like no more than $8,000 collected or something like that, so that we have something to stand on for future requests. I guess what I don't want is another thing like we had with the chickens. One person put in a request and then they all came coming in with a request. I don't want that.
Yep.
And that's why, so we have something to protect ourselves going through in the future. That's all I want.
If I probably work on 2, 3 of them little jobs a year, it's about it.
Okay.
So I will say, you don't have to put in the motion, if you will, the threshold of $8,000, because that is already the law.
Okay.
And he is, or even though there are residences in that area, that is a commercial downtown district. That is not a residential area.
Okay.
It's just that the allowable conditional uses are for auto body and gas stations. But in order for you to use it, you need to get a permit from the city council.
Yep, that's fine.
And we won't have a problem with a whole bunch of 20 cars sitting out front, Gary, or anything like that.
No.
The motion,
Motion to agree to a congressional use permit for Gary Borsted.
I'll second that.
motion has been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
Motion carries. Gambling permits, Appleton Firefighter Relief Association raffle.
Motion to approve Appleton Fire Relief Association raffle on December 3rd, 2021 and April 10th, 2021 pursuant to the Minnesota Gambling Control Board as prescribed by Minnesota Statute 349.166C.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded for the Firefighters Relief Association raffle. Will there be any other discussion?
How come we're doing this April 10th tonight?
2022.
Oh, all right.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. MNHS Byway Grant, $10,000.
Minnesota Historical Society has a grant for $10,000 to repair tear maps in our region. We've done this before with them a couple of times. We serve as their fiscal agent. We do all the initial paying and organizing. It runs through our system, if you will, and then we get reimbursed on their behalf.
Okay. That was gonna be my first question, I guess. is, How much of it do we get back?
All of it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Motion to approve submitting the MNHS Byway grant for $10,000 where the city will serve as the fiscal agent for the RDC.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Will there be any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Concrete disposal fees.
Right now, we're at what, Emma, 15 and 10?
Yes. Cubic yard for Aton residents and $15 per cubic yard for out.
And we're not making the most money with that. And
We haven't made enough to cover a quarter of the crushing that you proposed.
the community should know we have a large accumulation of concrete out there. And I got a quote for $140,000 to crush it all. There is some money to be made if we can go ahead and sell some of it, but the city council might have to consider raising the rates 10 and 15. It's not really covering anything just for this coming year. If we wanted to add it to the capital outlay, which we removed, would have been $20,000. So we want to try to capture as much revenue as possible so that we can pay for what we need to do with the concrete.
What I had brought up to Willie is I checked into it. Flat rate crushes concrete. They charge $7 a yard to crush it. Once you have the pile, you can resell it for $10 to $14 a yard, depending on, the area you can use it or who can use it. The city could actually use quite a bit of it for doing alleys and stuff like that. Because once you crush it and relay it, when it gets wet, it gets hard. It actually is a very good filler. But my theory behind the 50, I'd like to move the residents to 15 and the out of towners to 20, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That way, every yard we take in, we can crush 2 yards. And even more for the people out of town, so we can hopefully gain on it. The problem is our pile's getting so big and we have no money because a lot of the concrete came from tearing down houses and things in our own community. So we really can't bill ourselves. But if we can ever get on top of this and get a pile crushed and get it out to the community, because I know they buy it in Dawson, there's, well, your son buys a lot of it from people down in Monty. So if we could get the pile crushed and have inventory of it, we could resell it and finally get that fund up where we could actually have it as a moneymaker. Because like myself, I'm in the concrete business. I can't haul concrete to my place and stockpile it because it's illegal. It has to go to a facility like the city has. So that's why I would like to raise the rates, so every yard we take in, we can crush too.
So I just had a quick question. Where we do have the concrete out there at the brush site,
We're out of room too.
out of room, and we can't put it outside of like this specific area in that brush site. We can't pile it somewhere else. It's not permitted.
It's not.
So we've got to do something with what we have.
Well, what we physically need to do is hire somebody with a big payloader to push it up for right now, because we need a facility to put it. Like when I do work and tear somebody's driveway out, I have to have an avenue to take it to. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to haul it to mine, and it's gonna cost you way more.
And the payloader that the city owns will not do it. It's not big enough for,
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it's probably big enough, but just, you want somebody very skilled doing that because of the rebar and stuff sticking out of the concrete that you don't blow out tires. The perfect thing to do would be to have a cat.
a dozer.
Or a dozer.
Yeah, no. Okay, I just kind of wanted a little clarification on that.
Well, I don't want to see this run at a deficit. I mean, I'd like to see it at
What
least
did you say we had?
break even, if not
$8,000
generate.
for the account?
It's not necessarily an account, it's when we get the money in, we code it as garbage concrete disposal. And actually, I've been only back to 2013, and from 2013 until now, we've made just about $8,000 or so. Unfortunately, what happens too is when the brush gets open and there's not someone there, we may get concrete that isn't paid for, that gets stuck up there as well. So that's, why the money and the amount that's out there maybe aren't matching up 100%. And
Well, down the road,
City
I mean,
stuff.
just as a contractor, we might have to set it up where if I'm gonna dispose out there, we might have to have one of the city crew come out and verify what I dump, because I mean, I've seen people haul it out, and I'm sure they're not verifying that they hauled, I mean, they say they hauled you 10 yards and they hauled you 40, but that's where if we get the money up, we're gonna be making more money selling it than it's costing us, is what I'm trying to get.
Yeah.
to have.
What are you saying now, that we should charge them a ton now for in town?
Well, and that's where we need to figure it out, and we surely need to raise it, because when they crush it, they charge you by the ton. And when you're getting it delivered, they're telling you by the yard. So a yard of concrete is 3,000 pounds. So you're getting a ton and a half every time you're getting done. So that's where we're losing money too, because when they crush it, they charge by the ton. And by the yard, you're taking in 2,985 pounds or something per yard of concrete, depending.
And we're charging what now?
We're charging 10 and 15. I wanted to go with 15 and 20.
I don't see nothing wrong with that.
And that's enough?
Is it enough?
Is it enough?
Well, the only thing that I can stipulate is possibly we should change the wording, instead of by the yard, it's by the ton. And I can get you to go, you know what I mean, just because when you do that, they're charging you for a ton and you're getting paid for a yard.
the only problem is we don't have people that even know how to calculate how many yard, like the cubic yard that we charge already. Some people are like, well, it's a 5-gallon pail full, or it's a pickup bed full, or, it's.
Well, you should have a minimum probably too.
So that's where we run into calculations too. Sometimes people don't even know how to.
So would it be fair then at this point, if the city council wants to adjust the rates and for us to come back with language considerations for the next meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
we're
good.
just about out of that season now, so.
I think that Mayor brought up in terms of increase in pricing is more than fair.
Well, the whole thing is if we do it right, it can actually make the city money. I mean, when you resell the end product, if we do it right, you could possibly make $7 to $8 a yard back right to the city as cash money. So, I mean, it could be an avenue to bring income in too. So. All right, move on to resolution 2021-28, third quarter.
So just as a note, you guys are not going to make a motion to change it at this time?
No, we'll just wait until you rewrite the wording.
Perfect. And just as a note for those listening, the city council discussed different services for doing the job, but they did not endorse any particular service. Thank you.
Resolution 2021-28, third quarter gifts acknowledgement.
Motion to adopt resolution 2021-28, accepting gifts for the third quarter of 2021.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Will there be any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Transaction summary discussion.
You guys want me to go through it? Right now, the
Yeah.
unrestricted general fund balance is $2.5 million, and the restricted fund balance is $1 million. During the month of September, the city processed 300 invoices for a total of $287,110.95. Of that, the check disbursements were in the following manner: motor vehicles to state money, $38,000, DNR monies, $1,000, payroll checks, $69,000, federal Social Security, Medicare, $12,000, state withholdings was about $10,000, para was about $12,000, and then the approved invoices was about $197,000, or 169 checks and 253 invoices. Our ACHs, all clearinghouses, were about $150,000, 85 transactions, 88 invoices. And then money payments into the wastewater treatment plant money market account was $5,000. The city purchased, in pursuant to its purchase policy, for the liquor store, $6,659, payroll health insurance, $69,000, which was cited above, and to Otter Tail, $10,000 in utility. Contractual services, Matthias was paid $5,840, and we also paid wine vendors $5,129. Checkbook deposits are as follows: $405,000, which include deputy register, $41,000, the general fund, $38,000, water, sewer, garbage, $64,000, liquor, $61,000, and transfer to money markets, $200,000. As you can see, in terms of the cash flow of the city, we're in a very healthy position.
Purchases beyond city purchase policy.
Motion to, oh, excuse me. Is that where we're at? Motion to paying invoices?
Yep.
Motion to approve paying invoices for goods and services purchased beyond the city's purchase policy threshold.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Will there be any other discussion?
Want those following along. The costs for Rodeberg and Berryman Engineering are for Riley Brothers, a contractor, and the engineering services. 95% of those costs get paid by the grant. And we also get full reimbursement from PFA for Magny Construction and Apex Engineering costs, which are the boatload of these costs that you're voting on today.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Make a motion to enter into closed session to discuss labor negotiations.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Will there be any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
This conference will now be recorded.
You're going to make a motion to approve the union agreement in the city and the streets.
Make a motion to approve union negotiations between the streets and the city of Appleton.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Will there be any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Old business? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yep. Motion to adjourn.
Okay, Tim's second. Ted motioned it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.